Make this Valentine's Day as special for them as they are to you.
Thank you for coming with us and being with us today at Food for Thought. This is Sunil Chandy for a ministry out of Christ Episcopal Church. I'm the priest here at Christ Episcopal Church. And again, thank you for being with us at Food for Thought. If you are here today, please do say hello. Tell us that you're here. Tell us that you're connecting with us, because we want to make sure that we connect it with all of you and help you. Oh, there goes my iPad and it's turning on. Hey, Jan, how are you? Thank you for being with us. Natalie, thank you for being with us too. Again, being faithful watchers and connectors of this particular ministry. And of course, there are other people who are coming on board, and this is available throughout the day. So there are many. So it'll be viewed by many, many people. And so if you do like what you hear, of course, please do. Tell us in those comments. Tell us that you're not only here, but what you might enjoy. Steve, how are you doing? Hello to you, and thank you for being here. Today we round up this week with another wonderful guest. He is doing some great work here in our community in Westerly, Stonington, and he's got a really wonderful history and also an interesting background, and I think you'll enjoy our conversation with him. But first, before we go into that, I did want to share with you this morning. You know, every morning, as usual, I go and do my morning prayer, and I look at the lessons for the coming week or the coming Christmas season, or the coming days, Sundays. I kind of use that as a prep time. And it gives me an opportunity to kind of really allow the scriptures to sink into my normal everyday experience, especially as I look for the good news. And one of the things that came out this particular day was I was looking at the lessons for Christmas, and in the lesson for Christmas for the gospel is from Luke, and Luke chapter 2, verses 1 through 14 and 15 through 20. And it's the story of the birth of Jesus. And in particular, I gaze today really on the section regarding those shepherds who are living in the fields. They were living in the fields, and all of a sudden the heavens opened up, and there was revealed these angels, and these angels were just joyful and happy, and they were there. And at first, of course, the shepherds who see these angels are terrified. They're in fear. And the one thing, and this is an interesting thing in the scriptures that you might notice every time, whenever God appears, or there is a revelation of God or a revelation of the heavenly host, there's always fear. There's always fear, because it's kind of the unaccustomed. It is the not so normal. It's the unexpected in our experience, in the human experience. And then the next line, usually in Holy Scripture, from that heavenly being is, "Don't be afraid. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid." And then the angels to those shepherds said, "Do not be afraid. We bring you great news, a good news of great joy for you and all people, because God is born today. God will be coming in the midst of you." And then and so that's a beautiful image. And of course, the idea about not being afraid is important. The idea about in the darkness, in the unknown, God appears is important. But what I really focused this morning on, glory to God in the highest heaven, and on earth peace among those whom he favors. Those words really caught me this morning. And I started to think, well, is God predestining, or is there a sense of predestination here? Is there are some people that are favored over others? And I started to rack my mind in terms of the scriptures. I mean, and thinking about who is it that God favors? And of course, my mind went over characteristics of people that God has met. There's Abraham, there's Jacob, there's Moses, and of course Joshua, and all those folks, and even into the New Testament, like Paul. And there was a sense that wherever God meets these people are in a place where they need God, or they're open to God. There's a sense that there's a humility about them. They are not in the most highest of places. In fact, life is not often going well with them. And it's at that point that God comes. Now, I was wondering that maybe it's not necessarily that God chooses these people because of who they are, but maybe because they are orienting themselves to see God in these places, to recognize that God is present. Those shepherds are an example. They could have just simply ignored things. I mean, although it would be hard to ignore the angel and heavenly hosts that come about, but they could have turned away. They could have disbelieved or questioned their eyes and their experience and say, this is crazy. This is a hallucination. But what instead they do is they continue in that experience, and they continue to orient their hearts and minds in that experience, so much so that these shepherds then move from where they are. They're lying in the fields in the middle of the night. I can imagine. I don't like being awakened in the middle of the night at all. But if I'm already down for the count, it's going to be hard for me to start moving. But they had this experience, and then they say, let's investigate. Let's go deeper. Let's find out what's happening. And that's, I think, a quality of people whom God favors. There's a curiosity about them. There's also a humility about them. They don't seem to know. They seem to understand that they don't know everything, that there's mystery out in the world, and there's the possibility that God is doing things in the world. And the other thing is also, when God comes, it's usually in those places and times where there is brokenness. I think that's important for us to kind of know, because in our experience this year, we're not going to have a normal Christmas experience, as it were. It's not going to be the same as it were in the recent past. But we have to also acknowledge that every Christmas, there are people who are struggling, people who are, finding it hard to find joy in this time of joy. And it may have been, and not just other people, it could be us, as we struggle to make a perfect Christmas, as it were. Well, maybe the perfect Christmas is not that everything goes well and according to plan, but in spite of everything not going well, God always shows up. And then maybe the perfect Christmas is for those who start orienting their heart to when God shows up. Today, we have a wonderful guest. His name is Lee Eastbourne. He is the executive director of the Jonnycake Center, and I have been waiting to have Lee on the show. He's got this really wonderful bio, and not only that, he does some really wonderful work in our community. And the Jonnycake Center is well known far and wide in our community, and it helps many people who are not only struggling but also looking for a great deal. And so um, Lee will tell us about it, but I'd like to read a little bit about him. His bio reads as this. Lee was born and raised in Bradford, England, approximately 4 hours north of London. He completed his undergraduate education in the United Kingdom and currently holds a Bachelor of Arts with honors in sport and educational studies from the Liverpool Hope University. Lee moved to the United States in late 2004 for what he thought was a short commitment to work and to gain valuable experience before returning to England to pursue a career in education. That plan never came to fruition as Lee met and is now married to Jennifer, with whom he lives in Gales Ferry, Connecticut, with their 2 children. During this time in the United States, Lee has had roles in both the for-profit and non-profit sectors, serving as client services manager, account executive, and operations and marketing manager, and most recently, the Jonnycake Center's director of development, before being announced as the center's executive director starting in July 2017. I know that ever since he has become the executive director, and even before that, I've heard of Lee, and Lee has and I've met him several times, and just a gracious man. Ben, would you please bring Lee on board? Hey Lee, how are you?
Good afternoon. I'm very well, thank you, and thank you for the wonderful introduction.
Oh no, thank you for being on our show. It's a privilege. You do so much good work. You and the Jonnycake Center does amazing work in our community, and you have a wonderful history, a bio, and I want to go into that a little bit. But at first, I want if you can just explain to us the mission and the ministry of Jonnycake Center to all of our viewers.
Absolutely. So the Jonnycake Center is a non-profit social service organization that was founded in 1975. So we're actually celebrating 45 years this year, and we had some grandiose plans, as you can imagine, but they have obviously gone by the wayside with current world events and the pandemic. But we were in Bradford until 2007. And we just continued to grow and got to the point where we outgrew our space in Bradford, and we started to look for a new home. And we very simply looked at our client base and figured out where our clients were living. And the vast majority of our clients were Westerly-based residents, and for the most part here in the north end of town. And so it made a huge amount of sense for us to look for a new home in the north end of Westerly. So we moved to Industrial Drive in 2007 and have been here ever since and have continued to grow. So very simply, our mission is to serve individuals and to raise them out of dependency on an organization like the Jonnycake Center. So we have 4 main arms to our organization. Most people will know us for our on-site thrift store or our food pantry, but we do have a full wraparound social services office, and we also have an education department as well. So that's kind of a very brief overview of what we do as a center. But if I had 5 hours, I could probably keep on going.
You know, it's interesting because ever since I got here 6 years ago, 6.5 years ago, you know, I knew of the Jonnycake Center, the Warm Center, you know, and the Pawcatuck Neighborhood Center. All of these 3 in particular were really important organizations in our community because it served so many different people. And you know, and even in the comments just now, all these people know of you and of the work of the Jonnycake Center, and I'm just so privileged to see that, and glad that you're here to help us understand even deeper what that organization would do. So in this particular time, though, do you find that we're engaging? I mean, what's happening with folks, especially during this COVID crisis?
Sure. So obviously, as everybody knows, the unemployment rates and people out of work have absolutely skyrocketed in the last 9 months or so. So we have seen 2 considerable spikes here at the center for individuals looking for some form of help. Firstly was right at the beginning of the pandemic, kind of mid-March through April and May. And then secondly, at the end of July into August, when the CARES Act, the Federal CARES Act, was eliminated or came to an end, we saw a second spike of need here at the centre. And when I say need, that is both a food assistance need and some sort of financial assistance need or requirement. So we saw a little bit of a plateau kind of May, June, July time. We didn't see a drop. It kind of plateaued out a little bit, and then we saw a second spike from roughly middle of August onwards to where we are today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so which area of the organization do you see more people using? The food assistance, or I know we've been doing a collaboration with our Living Supplies Closet ministry. Right. And we now, because we had to close our doors in our church, we moved it over to the facility.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. So the Living Supplies Closet has a temporary home here at the Jonnycake Center, and we're delighted to be able to do that because there is certainly a need. So generally,
we're grateful for that too. We're so grateful for that, and thank you for that.
Our pleasure. So yes, to answer your question, we generally see a greater need for food assistance. And we have more available resources. So just to give you a brief breakdown of our service opportunities, on the financial assistance side, we have about $8,000 of kind of money available, of financial assistance dollars available to provide to clients on a monthly basis. So if my maths is correct, that's about $96,000 a year. And on the food assistance side, we serve about 3,000 unique individuals each year, and that translates to about 235,000 meals on a 12-month basis.
Wow! You wouldn't, in a place like Westerly, it's surprising sometimes to see that we have this much need.
It is, and I have this conversation with a lot of people that maybe don't know Westerly intimately. Is that you hear Westerly from afar and you automatically think of the beaches and Watch Hill and the Ocean House and the wealthier parts of town, and I must say that part of town are incredible supporters of the organization, but there's maybe some people that don't know that the north end of town harbors some pockets of poverty and low and moderate income here in Westerly. And that there is absolutely a need for our services.
Yeah, one of the other things that I've been noticing, not only in terms of is this general anxiety that people have, this fear of the future, this feeling of hopelessness, and I imagine that is, I mean, I see it in my own parish. I see like people, we aren't connecting the ways we used to. And so people, when we do our in-person services, people come in tears, they want that sense of connection and, so one of the things that I'm sensing is the anxiety, the psychological attitudes of folks and how they're dealing with this particular time is really important. And I think is Jonnycake thinking about along those lines? I mean, as you're dealing with people with food insecurity and maybe even wondering whether they're going to be able to cover the rent or the heating bills for this year, are you also noticing the anxiety of folks, and how are they addressing some of those issues?
We absolutely are. So generally our clients that we see don't usually have, it's very, very, very rare a client that comes to the Center for Service has just one particular need. It's generally a multitude of maybe 3 or 4 or 5. It could include homelessness or addiction or alcoholism or mental health.
Yeah.
So we are seeing, especially on the mental health side and the stress and anxiety. I mean, internally as an organization with our staff and our volunteers, it has been an incredibly, just like everybody else, it's been an incredibly mentally and emotionally taxing year for everybody, and people are exhausted, and we are seeing that exacerbated on the client assistance side of things as well. that there's more and more worry about how do we put a meal on the table, or how do we pay our utility bill this month, and that's a real challenge that we're working hard to overcome. Generally, if individuals are coming to us for service, it's one of their worst days, if you want to put it in that kind of terms. So we are a very understanding organization. We have no judgment. Everything is confidential on the service side of things. We welcome anyone. All are welcome here at the Centre for Service. That obviously for those individuals that reside in our service area, we are open. We have continued to be open throughout the pandemic on the service side of things, to help the population that are in need here in town and in the Chariho region as well.
You know, Lee, I was just thinking that you have such a buoyant spirit. I mean, and I can imagine, because I feel a kindred spirit in you, but I know that it can be hard. It can be very hard, and you know, especially when you're dealing with this type of, you know, almost like a vague experience where you don't know when things will end, where you're in this perpetual transitional moment, and it's kind of like you don't know where the future is, and part of me says that's you know, I was thinking in terms of even scriptures, that's when I think the Spirit of God, you know, a sense of hope, a sense of enthusiasm, a sense of you know, positive energy is always needed. But you know, I think like even with when you're talking about in your staff, that same sense of malaise, I feel, is going through all of us in terms of the nonprofit community, and I'm sure the for-profit community too.
Yeah.
You know? And so well, I just wanted to acknowledge that. I mean, and so it's just this idea about finding hope, and maybe the idea that you know, having these type of conversations, and collaborations among people who are like-minded, it's so important, because I know I want to help you, and I know you want to help the world, and whatever we could do to help collaborate with you is you know, is important for us, and because it's important for the world, and just want to thank you for all that you do.
Thank you.
I did want to ask you about your history, though. How did you? You're, you know, like you're from England. And you know, I'm originally from India, right?
Yeah.
And so we share this brotherhood in terms of this immigrant experience, and this country is so great and powerful, right? And you've made it your home. And tell us about that journey over here.
Yes, so I don't know if it's the same with you, Father, but it definitely wasn't part of the long-term plan for me to be here permanently. But so as you mentioned in my bio, I did all of my education up to the undergraduate level in England. I graduated from Liverpool Hope University back in 2004. I just want
one stop over there in that one. Liverpool, where the Beatles were born. I mean, do you know Caswell Cook? You know Caswell, I
do know Caswell, yes.
Oh my God, he must love you. I mean, he's one of our wardens. But I mean, where the Beatles were discovered, and great, it's super.
And it's obviously a huge sporting city as well. If you're a soccer fan, especially, there's both Liverpool and Everton. You know, a huge culture there. It was a really wonderful 3 years of undergraduate education. I definitely spent a lot of time, you know, exploring the city. I'll leave it at that, shall we say? But
okay.
So my plan, as you mentioned, I always thought that I would be a high school PE teacher. That was kind of my plan from a younger age, and I graduated in 2004, and I didn't feel quite ready to go into. So we consider it what is called a postgraduate certificate of education, very similar to a master's over here, to get your teaching qualifications, and I just wasn't ready immediately to take on that 1 year additional education. And I grew up playing soccer as most Brits do, and I had an opportunity to move to the States to coach soccer just down the road in North Kingstown. for the fall of 2004. And I was successful. I applied and I had a wonderful 10 weeks. And that part-time position turned into more of a full-time program management position for the company that was headquartered in Mystic at the time. And I applied, I was accepted to that. And I thought, maybe this will be a year, maybe 18 months or so. I'll go home, carry on with life, and everything will be great. And 3 months in, everything changed, and I met a wonderful lady, and we've been married since 2007. So Jen and I have been together, for nearly just about 15 years now. Been married for about 13, and we have 2 young children. We have Emmeline, our daughter, who is 8, and Noah, our son, who is 4. So a 10-week position, part-time position, has turned into a permanent thing, and I couldn't be happier to be living in the States and we live in Gales Ferry, but I've been working in Westerly for a little over a decade now, and it's a beautiful part of the country. We're close to the water, obviously. We're a couple of hours from the mountains.
Yeah,
so very, very excited to be here, and it's a great place to call home.
Yeah, I love that story. I mean, it's just you're open for the unexpected. I mean, you were expecting to go in one particular direction, and all of a sudden, love causes you to move in a different direction.
Yes, and prior to, so as you may know, Father, I worked at the Chorus of Westerly for about 6 years prior to moving to the Jonnycake Centre. But prior to that, I worked in for-profit. And my transition to the Jonnycake Centre is back in 2014 or so. We were struggling to fill our board of directors. And at the time, the vice president of the organisation worked with my wife, Jennifer, at Chelsea Groton in their financial services department. So Paulette, our previous vice president, reached out to Jen and said, "Hey, do you know anyone who would be interested in serving on the board at the Jonnycake Centre?" And as you know, as wives generally do, they nominate their husbands for things. So Jen said, "Yes, I know just the right person," and that was me. So early 2014, I stepped onto the board here at the centre, and I was on the board for about 18 months. And then a full-time position opened up in the fall of 2015 as Director of Development. And I'd been working alongside Jodie at the Chorus for a number of years, who was the Chorus of Westerly's Director of Development at the time. And it was just kind of a natural fit and a natural transition for me to take on that position. And less than 2 years later, the Executive Director seat opened up with our previous Director, Liz, and went back to school to pursue her Masters.
Yeah.
And it just all fell into place. And 3.5 years later, I'm still here. But delighted to be heading an organization with a wonderful mission and an absolutely incredible staff and volunteer base. I always say this, it's not just me. I know I come on a lot of these shows and talk to a lot of people, but we have a staff right now of 42 individuals that are just the world to me. They do incredible work, way more hours than they should be doing, way more stress than they should be taking on, to serve individuals and to make our mission happen. So I absolutely couldn't do it without them, and I always feel that I need to thank them for the amazing sacrifices that they make for this organization.
Oh, yes, I'm grateful for them too, and I'm grateful for the organization. You do such good work. And I did notice, though, when you were talking about soccer, you said soccer and not football.
I think some words I've been conditioned to say now. So I was working from home yesterday. Our daughter is on a hybrid model of schooling right now. So she's in school, physically in school Monday, Tuesdays, and home Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So Jen and I are balancing being home and being in the office. And one of the comments she had yesterday was that I still say tomato instead of tomato. A few things I have to go with now, but I can't get the tomato one out of my head. I always seem to say that one from the English side of things. But for most people, I will say soccer. A few Brits that I know we will stay with football.
Well, it's you're a wonderful man, and I so appreciate that you you appreciate your staff, because it's people, even in my church, people only, sometimes the figurehead is only seen out in the world, but there is a huge level of commitment and sacrifice from the organization. And for an organization such as yours, Jonnycake Center, that touches so many people's lives, you have to have people who are committed and deeply care about the community. And so thank you for being grateful for them, and I thank them on behalf of Christ Church as well for all that they do. You're spreading the light of God in this community, and it's so important. And whatever we could do to help encourage it and help encourage you, please let us know. Now, one of the things that we do ask is at the end of, we're almost done with our time here, but and I could speak forever with you, because I'd love. But we asked in the midst of one of the reasons why we started this thing was to help, this show was to help people connect and to find hope and wisdom to face the challenges they're facing. What piece of wisdom might you be able to give us, especially in this COVID-19 time?
I would say continue to think positive. One of the things I talk a lot about with individuals is that if you haven't had some sort of struggle in your life, whether it be mental or a worry about where the next meal will be, or a financial or some sort of struggle, you are part of such an incredibly small minority of people that haven't had to worry about student loan debt, for example, coming out of college, or maybe being in your mid-50s and wondering if you will ever retire, or how you maybe make Christmas happen, or Thanksgiving, which is generally a more expensive time of year, as we all know. Organizations like the Jonnycake Center, and I have to give shout out to other organizations, Wood River Health Services, the Warm Center here in town, PNC, the Jonnycake Center of Hope in Peacedale. We collaborate in an incredible amount of time. Sarah, our social services program director, is speaking with those organizations on a daily basis. We absolutely couldn't do this work that we do without collaborating with those other amazing organizations that are serving a population that is in need. So if you're going through tough times, stay positive. It will get better. We're starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel on the pandemic side of things with positive news about vaccinations. And up until 2 weeks ago, we weren't too sure when that potentially would come. There was times and we were thinking as an organization when we could potentially safely relax some of our restrictions that we have right now, and they've continued to be pushed out. The thrift store side of things, we are open, but we have a number of precautions in place to keep the building, if you will, healthy. But we're continuing to see some of our timelines continue to push out. But we definitely see some light at the end of the tunnel with positive vaccine news. But really stay positive. Organizations are here to help you if you're in need, and we will definitely get through this together.
We will. Well, thank you, and God bless you, Lee, and thank you and bless your work and the Jonnycake Center, and thank you for being with us. We hope to have you back one day.
Definitely, please do.
Okay, good.
It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Same here. Same here. Thank you again. Wonderful. Just another example, wonderful example of a good human being working in a wonderful institution that helps our community. And so we're grateful to God. This is, even though we're in a challenging time, God's grace exists. And it's for us to orient our vision to it and to see the holy work before us. As is our tradition, let's end our time in prayer. This is a prayer that's adapted from one written by Bishop Thomas Brown of Maine. The Lord be with you. Let us pray. Jesus Christ, you traveled through towns and villages, curing every disease and illness. At your command, the sick were made well. Come to our aid now in the midst of the global spread of the coronavirus. Heal those who are sick with the virus. May they regain their strength and health through quality medical care. Heal us from our fear, which prevents nations from working together and neighbors from helping one another. Be present with those in authority who are making hard decisions. Support the medical professionals, emergency responders, counselors and caregivers, institutions that work towards helping people. We ask your name. We ask all of this in your name, Jesus. Amen. Join with me in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not in temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Friends, go in peace to spread the light of God into the world around us, the light of hope and of joy. The world needs it right now.
Make this Valentine's Day as special for them as they are to you.